Welcome back, dear friends. Lovely to chat with you again. I've got a new project. If you've watched the last few videos, quite a lot of them, I've been working on Dan's TARDIS console. And he's been funding that via his fundraising page. Sadly, having finished the time rotor, the money has run out. So more on that later. But needless to say, I have lovingly stored the time rotor very, very carefully. Now the new project is another time machine. Would you Adam and Eve it? So I was contacted by someone called Ben, who trades as Jurassic Jabba, and he goes into primary schools, or kindergartens as they're called in the US, I think, and inspires young people an interest in dinosaurs. And he wanted to build some sort of time machine. He's bought a 1950s radiogram, beautiful wooden cabinet. Unfortunately I deleted the images off, never mind. But where the dials and the controls for the radio tuning go at the top, he wants me to make something that fits in there so that the students or children can adjust which area they're going to go to and have controls that work and things like that. His idea was to base it on the standard clock that I've used, because he'd seen the chronological engine and he liked the idea of this sort of control around here and possibly something here, and the copper pipes and things. So that was the starting point, and he very cleverly put it into Photoshop or something. There's the bit that he wanted me to make. Now this is too big. This is only 300 by 200 roughly millimeters. So this clock wouldn't fit on there, and that's really nice. I love this idea that it looks a bit like one of those repeater engine room things on a ship. That's nice, with all the different millions of years and eras that can be selected. So then I got the measurements all wrong, the dimensions, and then designed another one. Don't ask me why. And then I realised, of course, he liked the key switches as the same ones as are on the NEMnet Throbwell. And there was just room for two of those on the wrong size thing. And then I sort of was working out about the angles of the dangles. And then it was time to print a picture out and to try and work out all the different layers for this big dial here. Each bit of ply is 3mm thick, so it's just starting to scribble and things and get tired, and then do an even worse. I don't even know what that's meant to be, but then regain my wits and do a nice little drawing. So this is actually a side view, cross section if you will, and you can see there's lots of layers of ply. There's the side lever that's going to be supported with felt, so it's sort of nice and smooth to operate, and all the different bits and pieces with notes, which was really, really handy. And there's the thing that as you turn the knob it's going to move. The knob incidentally is going to be the same white porcelain ones that I got for the arcade machine. So then the next job, which was most enjoyable, was to turn it into separate slices. So each of these is going to be plywood. There's the lovely engraving. Look at that, all that information. It did take quite a while to figure out how to arrange text like that. Then the window that's going to be cut out of 3mm acrylic. And then finally the brass part, which is going to go around. Now I was planning to 3D print that because I thought it would have curved edges, it would look nice and all the rest of it. And I hadn't even considered this, but it's too big to fit on the 3D printer anyway. I just want to start making. I think I'll start with the baseboard. So there's the design for the base. Hopefully all the holes are in the right place. There's lots of them. Let's get that exported as a DXF file and onto the laser cutter. Lovely. So there we are. I will measure it just to make sure that it is actually the right size. I won't show you the cutting out of everything, but I'm going to cut out everything because I want to stain the edges. If I want to stick, say, that onto there, I'd put PVA glue on it, push it together. I'd have as much PVA as I could get without too much squeezing out, but some would inevitably squeeze out along the edges. Then when I came to stain it, the glue would stop the stains from going in and it would all just be very, very pale. I want it to be glued perfectly, so I'm going to... What was I even talking about? I've got the verbal diarrhea again. I'm going to stain it all first, then glue it. That's what I was going to say. Now it's time to engrave and cut out the engraving. I've got red, and I've set red to the engrave, raster engrave, and black to cut the rest of it out after it's done that. It takes a long time, but the precision is incredible, I tell you. It is so accurate. So what it's doing is actually started with the line that I want engraved around it. But you can see, you get the idea. Basically it's just going to go backwards and forwards, left and right, switching on and off, but very, very precise. I'm not going to video that. I'm going to go and paint the... I might leave the video on a little bit. I think I will actually. Devil Maker. That's quite enough of that. Let's get on and get this painted. Now, I could use hand-eye coordination and sand it, or I could use this beautiful router bit. It's even got 4 cutters on it and a lovely big bearing. That has a little internal radius there. So, problem is trying to get that spinning very fast in the router and not destroying this and turning it into fragments of very fast, high-speed pieces of plastic. Convert the spray booth into a routing table, I thought. But no, I couldn't remember why I hadn't done this before. There it is screwed on, but it's just too wide to fit in the old Black & Decker workmate. How annoying. I will make a list. When someone asks me, what do you want for Christmas? I will say a router table, possibly a new router. Right, I've got that securely clamped down, sort of not. Extractor on, it's connected to the Hoover thing. What a pain, it slipped underneath the bearing. Perhaps I'll try making this top bit out of 5mm, I think that might be a better idea. 5 worked beautifully, so that's nice, so I'll cut out a 5mm version of it. Now I can hear you screaming at the screen, just use the 3mm version and sand a little radius around it. But I now got it into my head that I want to do this because I remember last time I worked with a router and acrylic like this, it was at the Central School of Art and Design many moons ago with a beautiful, massive cast iron router that was sort of sat down from above, like a bit like a pillar drill, a huge pillar drill. Everything cast iron, I think I've already said that. A special generator thing on the back that you'd switch on first to get it so fast, it was unbelievable. And then if you wanted to line it up with something underneath, because the cutter was above, you'd have a little set of pins that you could poke up through from the below. It was absolute joy to use. I just thinking the mess, the absolute mess that I'm going to make of this. But I have a dream, live my dream. So let's get that cut out of 5mm. Okay, I admit it, I bottled it. I thought if the camera's on, I'm going to be slightly nervous and it's all going to go horribly wrong. It didn't, however, because the camera was off. So I rolled round beautifully, firmly holding the middle bearing stationary in it. It's come out really nice, so I'm very pleased about that. I'll give it a quick once over with some wet and dry, then get it sprayed. And it's almost time to take the dog out again. Where do the hours go? Many apologies, I've just got carried away and sprayed it, but that looks lovely, doesn't it? Isn't that lovely and shiny? The little radius at the top so the children can't cut themselves, I don't know. Whatever, but it looks lovely. Just before I take the dog for a walk, I need to drill a hole, M4 hole, through the little wooden knob so that I can stain it, because I'd forgotten about that. And I'm going to do that on the lathe, and I just noticed this filament. And I thought, God, I haven't used the lathe since before we went to the Isle of Wight. It's amazing. So anyway, don't know why that's important to me. I'll get that fixed in the eel drilled. First, a little touch with the centre drill. That's nice, because obviously I don't want the knob to be able to snap off or pull off. And then I will tap the hole there to M4, so it's unpainted, once I'm assembling it all, and then glue that in with super glue. It means that if it was ever necessary to unscrew the knob, you could do it, just be incredibly tight. It's another day, and things are going well, and things have dried. Let me show you. They've come out a treat. Beautiful. That's why I left the cutout in there. So I've now got room for a nice little clear window. So that's nice. Lots of exciting things here. The stain's all dry on all the different edges and things. And what I'm doing now, I've cut 4 pieces of pine. I've stained the edges ready, and I'm just marking on things that are too close that are going to overlap. Some screws, like that one, can go straight into the wood. That's fine. I'm going to have to make an allowance for the switch bodies as well. So I'm just doing that, and then we can finally glue that onto the base and then get on with all the other bits. Just heard from the customer and just finally decided what he wants to say on here. It's amazing the creativity brought out by people designing time machines. It's brilliant. So it's still time control, but he wanted to add temporal distortion engine like you do. It's most enjoyable designing labels and things, engravings, trying to fit everything on. It's lovely. I'm very pleased with that. It just looks nice with little twiddly bits. They're the other ones. I never learned, do I? I was just going to use this Forstner bit to drill a clearance hole for the switch body, and of course I didn't bother to clamp it down. I'll just hold it, as can be witnessed by all these scrape marks. But if it's clamped down, look at that, single-handedly. Brilliant! I've got stuff gluing between those 2 pieces, to be precise, with the heaviest thing I could find on top. And then over here I've got more things drying, sandwiched between that, with more heavy things on top. And now it's time. Oh, and I cleaned some of the look, that looks nice, doesn't it? I'm very pleased with that. That's come out nicely. And it's now time to start working on the compression fixings, because there's one of those bits. This is most exciting when you finally finish painting and staining and sticking, and it's time to start assembling. That's going to go on there. There's one of the radiator bleed valve keys. That needs to fit through the top. This is an 8mm to 15mm compression fitting. So it's got an olive, a copper olive in each end. So you put the 15mm pipe in that end, tighten it, and it crushes the olive and makes a watertight seal. I've taken the olive out of that end, because now what I need to do is to drill an L in this end, a 9.5mm hole to accept the end of that. Let's get that done. Lathe to the ready. The fascinating thing is, with the lathe, the drill stays still and the work turns. I'm very pleased with that. It looks really nice. It's well balanced, even though it says miss-in. Now what I'm going to do is to glue the label on and glue this in, because I could use the nut on the back as I do with the Nepnet throuble, but it needs to be child-proof. It needs to be really solid, because this can be unscrewed. It doesn't need to have the nut on the back, so that's what I'm going to do. And it also means it takes up less space, less depth. There we are. I do love gluing things, you may have gathered, with super glue especially. And this is lovely because I just lined it up, held it in place, and then the capillary action drew in lots and lots of super glue all round, so that will stick to the proverbial. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? I just polished it with my lamb's wool thing. It's much easier to hold than to put on a orbital sander. Now it's time to put these two off and engage. A little top tip, because I glue lots of labels on like this, circular ones, is to use a bit of sellotape, because you can put some super glue there and line it up. If you try and guess it, it never works. Or use masking tape, because you can't actually see the lettering. I will get that done. This is most exciting and enjoyable. I'm very pleased with how they look. They look like upside down pieces of bread, sliced bread, but they just come together beautifully. Got that sign on, that's glued on, and the little brass screws are glued in as well, just to make sure no child can sort of pick them out or whatever. In the end, I didn't use wood screws at all. I used machine screws. Just drilled out some holes for the nuts to go in. Just thought it would be more secure, and also I didn't have any round head wood screws or whatever, you get the drift. It's another day, another great day. I've cleaned up the engraving and that does look lovely. I'm very pleased with that. So now it's time to start thinking about how to put it all together. This is the base bit. So that's 6mm internal area. That's for the lever. I left this hole in the front because I don't want it rubbing. It's going to sit down there. So I'm thinking about having a piece of felt on the bottom and the top of that slot to guide it, and also a couple of felt washes in the middle. That's my thinking so far. Then this goes on next, and then that goes on like that. Ooh, that's looking nice, and it all lines up, which is always a good sign, I find. And then on the very top, which I haven't cut out yet, well, I have cut out, but I haven't peeled the stuff off, then that's going to sit. So, you get the idea. How could I forget? We've got this bit, which is going to go like that. Then, of course, ooh, shiny brass colour. Then we've got that bit, which is designed just to cover the gap and to be able to be screwed down firmly. So that's what we've got. So I've got to have a shaft which is going to turn out from brass down the centre that fixes the knob, the porcelain knob. I need some way of having the pointer thing, that thing, which I haven't actually made yet because I haven't decided how thick to make it. And then it carries on going down, and then we've got the switch sticking out the side with the lens thing in it. Here's another top tip. If you get your glue running away from the nozzle and get sick of having to keep holding it upside down, a toilet roll makes the perfect solution, especially for this make. It's ready to use whenever you are. The only thing is, make sure you remember to close the lid, otherwise you'll come back and find a solid toilet roll glued to your favourite work surface. There's some 12mm diameter brass rod which I'm going to use. There's the ceramic knob, which has got a little brass collet very badly glued into it. This was the closest one I could find to anything remotely centred. But whilst lying awake last night, like one does, thinking about porcelain knobs, I've decided that I'm going to drill that out. It's glued in badly. I'm just going to drill it out, and then I'm going to turn down the end of this, because obviously you really don't want kids to be able to unscrew this, even if you have locked it in place or whatever. So I'm going to turn down that so it fits inside. It's got a prong, so it's going to look a bit like that. Ha! Plan B. A 5mm disc of acrylic, tapped for M3, make it nice and strong, and I will glue the pointer onto it. By pointer I mean this bit. That makes perfect sense, because then the pointer will right in the middle and it won't be able to rub on the engraving or on the inside of the window. Ooh, I love it when a plan comes together. Just before I start wasting more bits of plastic, I thought I'd just check it fitted at each end. So there's the black bit's the little window, if you can see that. And it does, it fits perfectly with that 30mm 5mm bit in the middle, and I can just glue it on like that. That'll be absolutely fine, because all it's doing, it's not counting it, not turning anything, just itself, which is 2mm thick. I'll get that cut out. And there we have it, 5mm, lovely. I've made the hole about 11.5 diameter so I can drill it out perfectly to 12, because if you remember, I've said in the past about how you get a slight draft angle as the laser gets thinner as it goes through, but it starts off as 0.25mm at the top. I was about to do what I normally do, which is to put life and limb and digit at great risk and peril by just holding that down while trying to drill a 12mm hole through it. I realised I thought better of it, and I'm going to put it in the lathe instead, thanks to all those people who regularly remind me about properly clamping down work. I need to glue that onto there, 1.5mm up, so it's in the centre. And I found that my ruler, plus an old business card, it's 1.5mm. Lovely, so that's just gluing now. And I've tapped it, obviously not in the centre or in the middle, but never mind. And I've got the window lens thing glued in with the aid of a kebab stick. A little drop of super glue on the end, ever so carefully touched onto the inside, and then it just runs down. The times that I've ruined lenses and windows, but it's just run around on the inside, as you can see actually where it's gone slightly darker, and it's glued it in really thoroughly. And there's no sign of glue on this side, which is what we want. Further to spacing, this bottom bit, there's two pieces of felt there which I mentioned, that's right, I mentioned them, and it was too big. So what I've done is I've added 1.5mm by using a couple more bits of this engraving laminate, which is 1.5mm thick. You won't see the front of it, and you won't see the side because it's black and it doesn't show up, but it'll give me enough room hopefully to have two little bits of the red felt in there. And of course the laser cutter can cut felt, and it cuts it beautifully through the haze of filth. I must clean this window at some point. Imagine if you're using a scalpel or a pair of scissors, how difficult that would be. Oh, it's lovely. Look at that. Because felt is synthetic, it slightly melts the edges. Beautiful. Let's get that together, I can't wait. As all, prevarication is the name of the game. It's got to be my watchword. Before just putting off sticking things down and just, but I've finally gone and done it. We have red felt stuck down. Lovely. There and there, and there and there. And for this job I've used my alternative lovely favourite glue, which is this, what is it, Bostik all-purpose clear glue, which is great. You can use it as a contact adhesive, or you can use it as a normal adhesive. What's the difference? Right, I'm putting it off again. Let's get that lever thing on and see if it works. The moment of truth. Does it actually work? Ooh, that's nice. It's no good. I've been trying to avoid noticing it, but I can't not notice it. It's where some super glue sort of squished out. It's just so shiny, I can't let that go. Get my needle files out and try not to ruin it all just by sanding that down or filing it down a little bit. What a pain. In the end I used a rounded ended scalpel and some abrasive wet and dry, and I finally got that sorted out, so that's nice. That's just the first coat of paint, so it's a bit blotchy. Whilst that's setting, I think it's time, all that sitting together, I can measure the actual depth in real life. 62mm from the pointy end that's going to go and glue into the knob to the back. Oh, and I can't even remember what I'm talking about, whether I've mentioned it, but in the end I drilled it out just by holding it with an old worn out drill bit and slowly going down in the centre, and it didn't wobble around, it didn't smash anything, it didn't slice any of my fingers off, so I'm very pleased. But that's now clear, that hole. 6.5mm diameter to allow a little bit of glue around it. That will be really strong, so I need to turn down this end to 6.5mm, having cut off a piece of 62mm long. As you know, it's always a bit tricky videoing using the lathe, especially as I've got this handy piece of scaffolding pole for the centre of the TARDIS sitting handily right where I need to stand. But, dear friends, you're spoilt this time. I'm illuminating the scene. Now I just need to try and find out where to put the camera. Forgive the angle, but this actually might work. Let me balance on top of the scaffolding pole and get this parted off. Now I need to work out how far along, 13mm. Now, if I had got round, and I'm still intending to, someone called Alan, who saw me on YouTube, made me, free of charge, most amazing digital readout with two micrometers that he'd adapted and wired up to a controller with a digital display and buttons. Absolutely amazing. So intending, he built it for himself, for his milling machine, and he gave it to me so I could fix it to the lathe. I haven't got round to that yet. It would make it so much easier, and this might prompt me to actually try and find the time to get on with it. There just aren't enough hours in the day. Anyway, for the time being, let's use a ruler and pencil. Perfect. What an idiot! Of course. Once I'd got me araldite, epoxy resin, over the outside, pushed it in, and the air was all trapped and it couldn't get out, and it would not, even if I twisted it. There's a pocket of air, and I don't think that's a good idea because I don't want to risk it expand. Well, it's just not a good idea anyway. Let's have an end to it. So I'm going to drill a small hole up the middle to let the air out. There we are. A hole drilled through the middle, 1.5, little hole there, and it's still not quite set, so hopefully if I hurry I'll have time to do it. I thought I'd glue it all to my lathe by using it as a jig. Cunning. So there's one of the rotary switches. I've cut down the shaft to the right length. I've sanded 3 sides to match up with the flat side it comes with, and then there, that's it. And that pushes on, and I think I'll have them vertical for launch and horizontal. So I've put a little stop on the switch so it doesn't go too far. That's lovely. So now I can put this bit back on. Actually, what I've ended up doing is to use this version of brass key. They're not the ones that are brazed together. These ones are slightly more expensive, and they had a rivet through them which I've drilled out, separated, and then I've tapped this hole so you can actually screw the key on with a screw, which is great because it means if they get damaged or snapped or something, well, damaged, I can't see why they'd snap them, but that's great because if you needed to get them apart again to get access, you can unscrew the screw, and then this bit will then just lift off. So that's handy. I'm just gluing these two on really well with super glue. So I've put some tape round to make sure it doesn't run down. Sorry, I'm being sidetracked. It really is time for a walk. Look, it's assembled. You've seen all the bits and pieces that go into it, and I thought last night I'd just take a photo of it to show Ben because it's taken me ages to make this video. So I just sort of assembled it. Nothing's glued yet or anything like that. You can see how it works. It's lovely. So the children can turn that to decide or choose a particular era. They've got the 2 switches that go from horizontal to vertical, the 2 launch switches. They've got that nice big switch that slides up and down. Ooh, I am pleased with that, especially as it looks so like the drawing. It's always really exciting when you see something you've made that is exactly like the drawing. Excellent. Here's the inside. As you can see, those 2 key switches have got the rotary switches, which is great because if Ben decides to add sound effects, which would be really exciting, then they have already got switches. What I can do, if he wants the era one to have a voice that speaks or recites the name of each era and the information, I was thinking last night I could have a lever here, magnet on the end, and then 13 reed switches around. So as it passes, it triggers it. Can easily sort out something with the other control. I've found a really nice sound effects module which will also be useful for the TARDIS console, which has up to 32 sound effect recordings each, and you can control if it's 32, I think it's 30 seconds or 15 seconds each, 16 would be 30 seconds each, etc, etc. Each one triggerable and everything else. You can see I haven't screwed it together properly. So that's perfect. As with all my videos, they just go on and on because I think, just get that next bit done, that'll make a nice ending for it. And then it goes on, oh, just get that bit done. Everything always takes longer than I think. So thank you very much for watching this, and thanks very much to the people who contributed to Dan's Clockwork Fox Productions page. That's brilliant. I'll put the image on the screen and I'll read out their names. You thought these videos were just thrown together? How very dare you? Lowell, Anonymous, Ian Garbett of course, Anonymous, Philip, Anonymous and Anonymous. You know who you are, hopefully. So thank you very much. Please keep the funding coming in so that I can resume work on the TARDIS console. Hope to see you next time. Hope it won't be so long. Hope it'll involve adding sound effects. Thanks again for watching. Remember to click subscribe and all that. Thanks again.